All right. Today we're going to make a vase. We're going to hand build it. Mother's Day, what's better than a vase? Sadly, we probably won't be able to get this fired by Mother's Day, but you know, we're still going to make it. So I'm starting with a 2-pound ball of clay, and you can see the size if you don't have any kind of scale. And I'm reaching in just like I would a pinch pot, and I'm pushing from the inside out, and that's thinning the walls of this bottom hemisphere for the body of our vase. You're going to be thinning this out until the walls of your hemisphere are no more than 3/8 or so. Okay. Be aware that we've got some hot weather going on. We want to keep these moist. We don't want them to get too dry. And the heat from your hand can start to dry your clay out. If it starts to crack, don't be afraid to have a slightly moist sponge that you can moist and re-soften those cracks. You don't want them to get out of hand, and you particularly don't want any cracks to start forming here around the top, okay? So the size of this whole vase is going to be based on you getting each of these hemispheres thin enough so that they won't crack and they won't blow up. That'd be bad. And you should be able to do that just fine. You can tell as I go around and around, I'm not squeezing too hard in any one place. That keeps me from having too many finger marks. And if you start to get out of hand, you get cracks or something, you can always stop at any point using a rib and smooth it out. Usually I wait till I'm got it really, really thin, just the way I like it. To make this taller, you push from the inside out, okay? And again, I'm going around and around. I push around here from the inside, then I'm pushing from the inside out just a little higher. My right hand is holding it. If you try and do this with this sitting on a table, you'll just get sort of a dog bowl shape. It'll really flatten out because of gravity, okay? Some of you that have been in my first quarter class recognize this from their rattle project, although this is a way bigger pinch pot. Okay. At any point, if you feel that the clay is too soft and you're losing control, just set it down and come back in a little bit after it's firmed up a little. We always are going to be setting this on the rims so that, again, so that we don't flatten that bottom. We want to preserve that curve if we can. Pottery is all about the curve. Also, you want to avoid getting this kind of a shape, okay? Kind of a flower pot thing, because we're going to be joining two of these hemispheres together to give us the body of our vase, okay? So I'm pushing from the outside, and if you push too hard and you make a hole in it, take some clay and just smoosh it on there and keep on going, okay? So it's getting a little soft, but let's see how thick it is. I got my finger on the inside there, so I'm going to gently push down until I hit my finger. There it is. So that is the thickness of that wall. That's not too bad. Always remember to patch those holes up. I don't know if I've ever told you the story of when I made a beautiful vase and I forgot to patch up the little hole when I was checking. I was having a sale here at my studio and it was going fabulously, and this couple came in, they fell in love with that vase, and then the wife suddenly just says, "Put some water in it." And I go, well, "Hey, come on, I'm the potter. It ain't gonna leak." Anyway, got a hose, filled it with water. Whoo, it leaked like a sieve.
Just a little pinhole.
Yeah, so anyway, that vase is mine forever now. An albatross around my neck always reminded me, don't do that. You always want to make new mistakes as you go through life. You really don't want to make the same mistakes over and over. That's what you call a loser.
No. Variety is the spice of life.
Mm-hmm. So this is getting, it's not there, but it's close, and it's getting a little wibbly wobbly. So I would set this aside, come back and a while and wait for it to dry up a little. Before I do that, I'm going to just give it a quick smooth, okay? At this point, you don't have to be super perfect because you're gonna be manipulating this again and give it more finger marks that you're going to want to smooth. But you don't want it to get too out of hand. If you get big grooves or cracks, that could take some time to fill in, okay? And then we're going to set that aside, right? I'm just going to check it out. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside and come back tomorrow on that. One that I made a little bit ago looked like that. So the next session with this pot, we'll take it into a more full round shape, and you can see that it's firmed up a little bit, so it's real easy for me to really get a nice smooth surface. Is there any reason to have it perfectly smooth? No, I just want to get rid of all the accidental marks with it that happened when we were constructing it. And then I would encourage you to texture it in any way that you want to. Okay, so you're coming back. Let's say we come back tomorrow. Here we have two halves, right? The main thing about the two halves is that they more or less meet, because this is going to be the body of our vase, okay? So first thing we're going to do is you want to make a coil for the foot, because whenever you set this down, you want it to be on that foot so that it doesn't flatten out and get down on the side. You don't want it to look like it's been drinking. So there's our foot. Again, you wouldn't want to make this foot any fatter, because then you run the risk of it maybe blowing up. Okay, so I made a little mark where it's going to join the body. So I use a little water. I have put some clay in some water. It's like mayonnaise. One of my beginning students wanted an exact formula, and I was like, what? That's crazy talk. So I came up with this, telling her that it looked more like mayonnaise. She didn't like that answer. And I said, there's no real general rule of thumb. If you have more water in it, it's thin, more like milk. And if it's thick, it's gloppy. But it'll help to glue all our pieces together, right? Every single piece of clay that we're joining in this class, we should score and slip. So you might just make a small little container of it and have it ready. Now we're going to also score and slip this little area. This can get kind of messy, so make sure you clean up your mess when you're done. Just take a quick peek. Take a small sponge, clean it up. Okay. A lot of times I do this whole and then accidentally I've attached it in an uneven manner. So I want to check before I join. It's okay. You know, what I'm thinking is I've made this ring too wide for this pot. So I'm going to take it off, even though I've almost was really secure there. And I'm going to shorten the diameter, okay? So I'm going to cut it, put that on, just put the ring on top of each other. And if you cut it at an angle, discard the two pieces, you should be able to join it back up pretty slickly without any telltale mark. And again, slip both sides, boom. Okay, now let's see where we're at. Again, not very round right now, so we're going to want to try and fix that. And once again, back to the old scratch and sniff. Oh, I mean, scratch and slip. Okay, let's see how we're doing now. Let's see if we got that. Or to my liking. I like that better. It could be even, it could even be a little narrower, but then we run the risk of it being tippy. So this is going to be, you know, this is the other part of the body, and then we're going to put a neck on it like so. So it's pretty tall. So it's got to have a firm base. So that's looking pretty good. Next step is make yourself some coils. You got that on there really good, right? And I'm going to take the end of my needle tool and I'm going to push down on the inside. I'm going to go all the way around. If everything is firm, you shouldn't have any trouble. If you have trouble with this and it's really moving all around, then you've attempted this when it's too soft. Make a coil. Could be a small coil. Just a happy little coil. We want to take this, and this is just going to be extra security for holding that on, and I'm just going around the inside, okay? Which should smooth out all of that texture. If you like that texture, you could go back after this step and redo it. That's kind of crazy, but it's your pot. I don't care about that sort of thing. Okay. At this stage, it's going to dry on its foot. So make sure you sign it first before you move on. I have a little stamp that I use. Now, I think with this big gap, we need to go around the outside with another little coil. Just to make sure this baby doesn't crack off. That would be disaster. Okay, not a big disaster, but...
It's very sad when you pull it off the shelf and the foot is still there.
Yeah. And Charles will comment on your pot that doesn't have a foot. And no one likes that. Okay, so I like to put a little slip on our coil before I run it around. It will make it messier, but that's to be expected. So now I'm using my thumb to push that coil in. As you do that, it may want to come off of the pot, but you should have enough of a coil there to be able to use that to go all the way around, okay? So as you run your finger around, you'll take some off, which is okay. Okay. There's a few little things here, and you may have heard me complain sometimes some of your work has these little scoobies on there and you've left them there. And if I were to do that, when I go to glaze them, so the pot's been bisqued, those are stuck on there and they're very sharp. And then if we try and put glaze over that, we run the risk of creating little razors. It'd be most unpleasant. And we don't want our moms to get mad at us for playing with razors. So I've got my pot there, I've got my foot on, it's signed. Taking a little bit of care there. Now, you're going to put it upside down. Put paper underneath it. Otherwise, that foot could stick to a board or a table when you go to undo it. Not good. So we're going to attach the other half of the body now. And again, score and a slip, right? Both sides. Okay, I'm just putting a little water on there. Don't let your water or your slip drip down on the side if you can. If you make a slip and you see some of that water or slip slide down in there, clean it up. because if you leave that water in there, what's going to happen is it's going to soften the very bottom on the inside of your pot, and it's going to be wetter than the rest of your work, and it'll form a crack as it dries. And you'll see these little cracks, and then it won't hold water, which is a bummer. Okay, so there's our body. I'm just going to set it aside. Now we have the other half of this guy, and we're going to do the same. Put a little clay mayonnaise on there. Johnny's ranch dressing. Be warned, this hot weather we're having lately, your slip setting around by yourself can be very fragrant. If that's bothering you, put a drop of Clorox or something in there. Won't hurt you or nothing. I wouldn't drink it. Or put it on your burger. Just warning you. Okay, I'm gonna go over there a little more. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I got a drop in there. I'm gonna clean out my sponge and pick that off, okay? Good. Now, I need to clean my hand. Where's my towel? And we're gonna join them together if we can. Okay. They need to be reasonably close for this to work, and this is reasonably close. Not perfect, but reasonably. I didn't measure it or anything. While you have it upside down and you see your foot's looking a little funny, clean it up. Okay, so, well, that looks pretty terrible right now. It wouldn't hold water, but we're ready for the next step. Next step, another coil. And we're going to make a little belt around this waist of these two pieces, this giant egg, if you will. Doesn't have to, you don't want a giant coil. Okay, what's a giant coil? That would be a giant coil. Petite coil. Okay, this isn't gonna go all around. I would like my coil to go all the way around, and you know how I figure that out is take a string or something and I run it around, and so now I know I need a coil. Oops. I know I need a coil about yay long, right? So I'll just give me a little mark there. Just a helping hand. You could use two smaller coils, but it runs the risk of there being a mark where you join them, and if that's the case, I would only like one of those. 2 or 3 coils might give you 2 or 3 marks where the coils start and end. So I'm just trying to do my due diligence to make sure that doesn't happen, okay? When I'm rolling on my coil, I spread my fingers out, and that helps me to keep it round. What you don't want when you're rolling your coil out is to get a flat side. It's very hard to get rid of that. you can do so by just putting a lot of pressure and then forcing it back around, but it's, you know, not ideal. So this is more than enough clay. Yeah, take more than enough clay so you can get your coil all the way around. Okay, so I think because my coil is so wet, well, I'm just gonna score that again. We have another trick up our sleeve to make this really adhere and hide what we're doing with our coil here, okay? Okay, and the same thing, we're going to overlap it just a little bit and then cut it at an angle, a 45-degree angle for those of you that are mathematically inclined. That would not be me. And so there. The point being, we don't want to double this coil up on the side of the pot. And take our trusty, just give it a kind of a finger tap to make sure it's started on there. So then what we're going to do is we're going to pick it up. Hopefully you have something that you can use to paddle. Maybe the back of a spoon, big wooden spoon. The shovel's going to be too big. How about a book in a gallon Ziploc? I might do it. And we're just going to paddle that in. Now the beauty of this right now is that we have trapped air inside of this form. So we can change its shape if we want. And I am not a stickler on whether you want to paddle this into a different shape or not. Go ahead. Do what you want. You can leave it as is or not. And so I don't want to really crush it with my paddle. But I do want it to be paddled into the sides of this pot really, really good, right? And at various times, then you can take your rib and smooth that even more into the two hemispheres. You know, everyone looks better with a belt on, right? So I'm just using some force, and I'm really sort of attacking it at an angle. I'm not going perpendicular to the pot because that would maybe possibly dig in too much, right? If I get some clay on my rib, I can sort of deposit it farther along. And as you get that smoothed in, then you can really start to reef on it a little bit and get rid of that texture. And we're going to try and get it smoothen up through smooshing or paddling so that we can't tell where the join line is. That's our goal. What this technique allows us to do is make a much bigger pot than we would normally been able to do with small parts that we can easily make. Okay? So I'm not really taking much clay off. I mean, what's on my rib is it. And even there, I use it to fill and paste. So now, more paddle. And that will also help to smooth that. Now it is getting soft. At any point now, if you feel like it's getting a little too soft, you can stop, set it aside, maybe come back a few hours. Don't leave it in the sun. Because once it starts to dry, you won't be able to do any of this. The smoothing thing, you can spend hours doing this. So I'm probably gonna call it good enough for this demo soon. But I wanted to show you the care I take. It's an important detail. The other thing is, I may not like that shape so much, so I can start to paddle it into a completely different shape if I'd like. Yeah. So, now we're going to take a lump of clay, like so, and we're going to put a thin pencil or your needle tool all the way through it, like so. Okay, and this is going to be the neck on our vase. So I'm rolling it, and I'm kind of just pushing down, which has the effect of widening this up. Okay, and again, we want this the same thickness as our pot. So you're just going to keep doing that. If one side starts to get thicker than the other, make a conscious effort to even that out, because the top of our pot is what people are going to see with their eye first. And if you leave some discrepancies there, they'll notice that right off the bat and they'll go, "Hey, what'd you do there? What happened here? I want a better one." You could even put your finger in when it's wide enough to do so, and whatever you got to do, you know. So you're going to do that to get something that sort of looks like a reasonable neck. Okay, let me take a peek at this. There's a lot of smoothing I've got to do here. Tomorrow, after it dries up a little, will be much easier to do that. And finally, you know, again, we're going to mark this where it was, and we're going to join it like we did the foot, right? So, score. You notice I still haven't opened this up yet. Once I open this up to make it a completely hollow form, or I mean an opened up form, I would have to be much more careful about pushing down on it, because then it can sag. Might even want to just not stand as tall as you'd like. So
because there's no air pressure inside pressing back anymore.
That's right. So that's kind of what really helps us. So again, I'm going to score this guy now. And again, if you get some drips on there, clean them up. Keep your towel around. Keep your hands clean so you're not leaving marks all over the place. Make sure you look and see if that's kind of where you want it before you join it. Okay, so that's looking good. Now, if you've been following along, you know we got just a couple more steps. We got to add a coil in there. Sorry, I'm going off camera on you. Got to get some. Particularly the outside coil, we want that to be small. We don't want it to be, it doesn't matter on the inside so much, but we don't want it to be giant because it'll just add more unnecessary weight. So I take my needle tool and I kind of jab it in place. And then I'm going to go over and smooth that as much as I can. Nice. And we've got a couple more steps. Whew. You know, if you get any gouges, just take a little bit of clay. And of course, after you've been working on it a while, you just get tired. You don't notice all that stuff, but you come back and go, oh my gosh, look at that. So take the time, make it nice because it's for your mom, right? My mom's house, full of my pots, right? Especially the beginning ones. Oh, they were pretty bad, right? So whenever I'd go home after I'd been more accomplished, it was really embarrassing to see those old pots. So, you know, I'd move along. During my visit, I'd move them closer and closer to the edges of tables. You know, after a night of drinking with my family, someone would knock them off, and I go, "Hey, Ma, I got a much better one here." Okay. She's in heaven now, so she knows all about that. Okay. Now this little coil, super wet, and I knew I was going to smoosh it in, so I didn't really score that. But there's a lot of slip, as you can see, from the initial scoring and slipping of the neck. That's going to be kind of, sometimes you can get away with breaking the rules if you get lucky. I don't want it to get too messy here. Okay. So I'm going to come back and work on that. But okay, I've got two more steps. I've got to open up my egg form, and something that I've noticed from your cups, your rims were really not good on your cups, right? They were often squared, and we want that a little more round, so that when we go to glaze it, it isn't a really sharp, unpleasant thing there. I'm just running my sponge around. It couldn't be more easier. You might want to add another coil on top here for a rim. I'm going to give you a lot of leeway. This is pretty plain. If you want to go and decorate this with faces or maybe a vine with leaves and something like that, knock yourself out. I'm thinking of, it'll take me forever. Yeah, but I'm thinking of adding little coronaviruses all over it in the days to come. We'll see. It's got all those little things on there. I'm afraid they're all going to break off, so it may not work. Okay, so let's cut this out, shall we? And hopefully you'll cut it out, and don't go all the way around because it might fall down inside. Be very difficult to get out. So it's partially cut, and I'm just prying it up. Okay, I think I got it. Oh yeah, come on, hang on. Ba-doo. Whew. So, here we go. There's our hand-built vase. Hope you have fun doing it. I've been impressed with some of your decorating skills, so knock yourself out. I don't really have a height requirement, but I don't want to see incredibly small ones. Okay. What would be that? What would that be? You know. An incredibly small one might be 5 or 6 inches. What do we got here? 10. That's good. I made a series of necks before I chose this one. So you might do the same thing. Make a couple and see which you like better. All right? Okay, before you go, because I know you don't believe me that I made a coronavirus. So here's the one I made. It's bisqued, but there's a problem, right? You touch that, then you're gonna go, it's just gonna self-destruct. So it's not as robust as a real virus. So I've been thinking about, but it rattles. Hey, baby. Okay, thank you. See ya.